Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to a very special Halloween spooktacular here on Second Take Cinema, coming at you from the creepy Impala Films headquarters in spooky Southend-on-Sea. I am, as always, your host, Jamie Evans, joined, as per usual, by Rory Jocelyn.
Hello, everybody.
But we've got an extra special treat for you guys on this episode. We have not one but two guests. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. He is the co-producer of Haunted, the audio drama. It's Benton Hodges.
Hello, hello.
You know him, and if you've listened to Haunted, you don't like him. It's Dave Gardner.
Hey.
You might want to explain that, because if anyone hasn't listened to Haunted,
He's the
they
villain.
just think he's a dickhead.
He is, yeah.
And I bully everyone when we're recording it.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have got a very excited episode for you. We are getting back in our time machine and we are travelling back to the year of our Lord 1978 to review John Carpenter's Halloween. Cue the theme tune. Okay, and we're back. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are talking about the 1978 movie Halloween, written and directed by John Carpenter. And Deborah Hill also wrote it, I believe, as well. So written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, directed by John Carpenter, music by John Carpenter, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, Nancy Loomis, and PJ Soles. DOP Dean Cundy, who later went on to work with Spielberg and Zemeckis a lot, including being the DOP on the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Jurassic Park. So yeah, quite the career. This was filmed on a budget of $300,000 and made $70 million. And just because I was being that kind of nerd, I ran the figures to see what that would equate to in UK money at the time in 1978. So in our money, that would have been £150,000 was the budget for this movie.
Right.
So it's only polite to start with our guests, so I'm going to come to Dave first. Dave, do you remember the first time you ever saw this movie?
I think so, yeah. I did, when I was doing my media A-level, we had to do, it was great actually, one of the exam questions was on the film Scream. So I had to watch Scream about 50,000 times.
Great film.
And then, yeah, the guys who I went to college with, there was two guys. One of them had all of the Halloweens, and the other one had all the Friday 13th. So I just borrowed all of those, and yeah, I think I just went like all through the whole franchise alongside Scream when I was like 17 years old.
In order?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would assume so. Also, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I remember seeing that for the first time around then as well. And yeah.
And what do you remember? What your initial thoughts on seeing Halloween the first time were?
I thought it was good. Yeah, I think I enjoyed it. I think pretty much the same as what I think about it now, I would say.
Okay, well, we'll get to that soon,
Yeah.
then. Benton, do you remember the first time you saw Halloween?
It's not too long ago, actually, to be fair. I think I actually saw the remakes before I saw... In fact...
What, the Rob Zombie ones?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I saw the Rob Zombies.
Poor bloke.
And then I saw the new... I guess they're not reboots, are they? They ignore the canon and then...
The
I mean,
David
the
Gordon
ends,
Green
the
ones.
kills, and all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
ones, yeah.
And then watched one and then worked my way through
Okay.
sort of the classic continuity. Yeah, that's so... I've watched it in a very, very odd order.
You and me watched Halloween Resurrection together.
We did
Was
indeed.
that before you'd seen the original?
It might have been.
Was Halloween Resurrection your first experience?
Buster
of
Rhymes karate chopping Michael Myers may have been my introduction to the series.
You thought, I have to go back and watch the rest of these. If they're as good as this...
It's
then-
always interesting to see where something goes from its inception to 8 films down the line, which is where you get classics like, Jason X.
Yeah. Jason Goes to Space. Is that Jason?
That
Goes
is
to-
indeed. That is indeed. Or you think we're haunted where it started and where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, time travel.
Chav vampires.
Yeah, you jump the shark first.
Yeah. Is Carl gonna battle dinosaurs in the next season?
He's going to ride a dinosaur.
In
Carl on
in
a
the hollow
T-Rex. James has got a sidekick who's a pterodactyl. And he's just like, get him, boy.
Is it a talking pterodactyl as well? Because that would be
And it's
Yeah.
voiced by Gilbert.
a wisecracking.
Gilbert Godfrey.
Can't be Gilbert Godfrey anymore, can it?
Oh, he's dead,
It's an
isn't he?
AI. who
I'm
rep-
sure. Yeah, I'm sure you can like
Get an AI.
comp together bits of Gilbert Godfrey films.
Just all his Iago
Yeah.
dialogue from Aladdin.
Or get
Yeah.
Danny DeVito.
Do you remember what you thought of Halloween the first time you saw it?
Yeah, I thought it was, it's funny because it's obviously retroactively. The big one is everything's very cliche, but then you have to keep in mind that this is what set the cliches. This is definitive rather than derivative. But going back to it, it's quite plain. Is in like it's not. It's there's not much in the way of gore. There isn't much. The only jump scare I can think of is when he sits up. But funny enough, I think my dad, that is still terrifying, and it's far more simplistic, but I think that makes it more effective.
Yeah, I had an ex who was older than me, and she was,
A Jason X.
ha ha ha. I hate you.
Is that getting cut?
Yeah. I had an ex who was older than me, and she had seen Halloween, not when it first came out, but when she was like 14, she'd seen it. And she was still, like, she wouldn't watch Resurrection with me because she was like, no, Michael Myers is terrifying. He's the most terrifying creature in cinema history. I was like, trust me, when you've seen Busta Rhymes karate kick him, he's not. Rory, you quite recently experienced this film for the first time, didn't you?
Yes, I think it was a year ago. So we've been doing a weird thing with me as kind of an experiment where, because I've not seen many of the horror classics, you decided to show me Halloween last year to show me Halloween. And then for this series, you've decided to take me on the journey of, instead of watching the classic continuity, which I still haven't seen, we've watched Halloween again. And then we've done the new continuity, or
The David Gordon Green trilogy.
And then we watched the horrendous car crash that is the duology from Rob Zombie. I wish I could have my time back for that.
I still haven't seen those. I've heard only bad things.
Two of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they're like literally. I'd rather watch Kill Keith again, which is a horror movie starring Keith Chegwin dressed as Uma Thurman from Kill Bill, and I bought it for Jamie, so he's got a copy of it now.
Which I still haven't watched.
He hasn't watched it. It's also got the guy with the squeaky voice. What's his name?
Joe Pasquale.
Joe Pasquale. He dies in it.
Spoilers.
I would love to have been in that pitch
He's shouting F-bombs at the murderer before he gets stabbed.
Brilliant.
in a squeaky voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so most of my opinion, I think, at the moment, we'll get into the details when we go through it, is kind of similar to Benton in that you watch it and you're like, this is just all the classic cliches. But again, as he says, it's definitive, not derivative. So you have to kind of bear that in mind. And it is a little more plain than I was expecting, though there are a couple of interesting elements to it. But we'll go through. Most of my opinion, I'd rather do as we go through the film.
Yeah, no problem. So there's two ways we can do this. We can either kind of go through the plot roughly.
Should we hear about the first time you watched it? We haven't heard that yet, have we?
So actually, yes, we will, because I think
was two.
I think I've probably had the biggest change in my opinion on it. So I was 13 or 14 when I saw this. I'd seen Nightmare on Elm Street, which obviously got me started on my whole I want to be a filmmaker thing. And I watched Elm Street over and over, loved it, knew every word for it. Then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the other big horror franchises. So I saw Friday the 13th, hated it. Because I was watching it going, where the fuck's Jason? I was told there was Jason in this movie, and there is no
Literally,
Jason in the first
10 seconds at the end.
Right at the end, yeah. And I watched Halloween, and I remember I actually watched this with my whole family. It was one of the very few times my whole family sat down to watch a film, and I was bored as fuck watching it. And I was like, well, he looks cool, but this is really dull. I watched this again last night for this, and that's about the 100th time I've seen Halloween now. And I was worried going in. I was like, I bet I've I must have become bored of this by now. I love it even more. And I was still discovering new things about it.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Watching it this time. So it's up to you guys. We can either go through it plot-wise, or we just break it down into areas sometimes where we just go, right, let's talk about the script, let's talk about the way it's shot. It's up to you guys. What's everyone more comfortable with? Does anyone have a specific part of the film they want to talk about?
I genuinely... It's been a while since I watched it. Sorry, I should have watched it for the podcast. But
Shame.
I'm
Yours there,
trying.
mate.
I'll give the best summary I can remember. Right?
What of the plot?
Yeah. Michael Myers' sister
Yeah.
goes upstairs with her boyfriend, who lasts about 10 seconds.
There's a lot of short sex in this film.
Yeah.
Both sex scenes are less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But he goes upstairs and then comes downstairs in 10 seconds
Yeah.
flat. Poor man. Anywho, the amazing follow shot through the house though, which kind of was why I know why it has to. Why it was that way.
You don't really want it to take 20 minutes.
No, Michael would have to fumble with the door lock for.
Finds the old condom outside.
There could have been
the door.
a thing though where he hangs about outside the door and hears them, and him going, "Oh God, I've gone in my pants. I'm really sorry." And then
really
You know what I
shamed
mean?
him. But I feel like it kept the pace up very well, and just has that funny
yeah.
little unintentional kind of
Yeah.
thing to it. And then Laurie Strode, as a teenager, goes to drop a letter off at the Myers house.
because it's going to go up for sale, isn't it?
Yeah. And because of that, Michael Myers is like, fuck you in particular. Which in the sequel is then revealed because she's his long lost sister.
Yeah.
When they take that out of the continuity, Michael Myers just hates her because.
Yeah, which is much scarier. That's much the whole.
Well, he
sister
murders other people as well. I don't think
his obsession with her.
Also, in this particular film, he doesn't seem specifically obsessed with her because he kills the friend, but also he stalks the kid that he sees talking to her. And it just seems to be that anyone who he can get to, he will get to.
Yeah, dogs.
So he kills a dog in this one as well. Yeah, it's literally he'll just go through whatever is in his way where he can get
He's
to
just
them.
evil.
Whereas I think you're saying sort of him stalking Laurie, it's more that Laurie is smart enough to spot this guy hanging about whilst the laundry is drying outside, and everyone else is too busy saying totally or plotting when they can have sex.
Yeah.
Though him standing
to notice
outside the school when he's behind the car just looking at her, just
Yeah.
it was like that bit wasn't creepy. I was just like, why?
Yeah.
No one else is seeing this guy, and that he not only disappears, she turns her head to talk to the teacher, and when she turns back, both him and the car are gone.
Yeah.
You haven't heard. It's like, to be fair,
Loomis does.
I did write this.
mention
Yeah,
that,
Loomis actually states. He states, where is it? Fixes a plot hole at one point by saying, "How did he learn to drive? Maybe someone around here gave him lessons." And it was like, that's just you realizing, fuck, he was 8. There's no way he learned to drive.
But no, and then he stalks her, right?
Yes.
And then Halloween happens, and all the kids are going around trick or treating, and she's babysitting the kid.
Is it Jimmy? Is that his name?
Tommy.
Sorry. Tommy.
Who then reappears in the later.
Yes.
Is it played by the same actor?
No.
Okay.
The little girl is though. The little girl in Halloween Kills, Kyle Richards. That is Kyle Richards plays her in the original Halloween as
She
well.
plays Lindsay.
Lindsay
doesn't she?
Wallace, yeah.
Doesn't
Her and Jamie Lee Curtis are good friends in real
Doesn't
life.
she die in?
In Halloween Kills, she does, yeah.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
Halloween End.
I thought she maybe
she
died
makes
in
it.
the 4th or the 3rd.
No, you're right.
No,
she
she
makes
dies
it.
in 4.
She makes it.
Either way,
Okay.
then they watch the original version of The Thing before John Carpenter did it, which is a nice little...
That is a nice Easter egg type thing.
Yeah.
Is that what they would call that? I don't know what fucking Easter egg
I'm
is.
not
but
sure if that
everyone
was on
talks about
purpose. But
Yeah,
No, it's not, but it's lovely
it
that
is
he
now,
does go on to do
yeah.
it later, yeah.
Which is when it was The Thing from Outer Space, I
Yeah.
believe.
Think from another world.
Yeah, because it was a book, which was Who Goes There, then The Thing from Another World, and then obviously The Thing, and then the remake.
So if you sit the thing in the southern states, then it's the Thang.
Do we...
I'm sorry, guys.
That will be cut in the edit, I assume.
Definitely.
Or you just leave that silence,
Yeah.
the telling silence
I
afterwards.
might add in the sound of a tumbleweed roll.
Can I say you did miss the part when Laurie and Annie are in the car smoking weed?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Annie sees her dad, is like, oh shit, my dad's a cop and we're smoking weed in my car. But she pulls over to speak to him rather than just carries on driving.
That did confuse me.
Yeah, her dad comes over to the car, they wind down the window, and he doesn't kind of go, why does this car stink of weed? He's the worst police officer ever.
He's the worst cop.
Yeah. You would just smell it immediately, and he's like, nope.
Though something that I did find
They should have done that.
kind of interesting, because we watched the new trilogy. It was
The David Gordon Green trilogy.
David Gordon Green. In his trilogy, at least in the first one, there's that guy who's way too old to have gone out with Laurie Strode's granddaughter, who, like, the cop she was going out with.
Oh, that's
for a
in the
while.
last one in Halloween Ends.
Yeah. And he's just, but like, I thought it was meant to be this guy because they had a similar hairpiece.
Right.
It was. I was like, is that guy in Halloween Kills a throwback to this? Like, oh, all the cops have hairpieces in Haddonfield or wherever.
Halloween Ends was so shit.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Let's talk about that opening sequence for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't verify this, so I don't know how true it is. But apparently, this is only the second film ever to use the Panaglide Steadicam. Ever in film history, apparently.
Okay.
And Carpenter really does make great use of it. There's a load of videos. I won't go into them because there's a billion videos on YouTube about the cinematography for this film and how it's used to communicate extra things.
Right.
But apparently that $300,000 budget, like, I think that the thing that makes this film better than a lot of other indie films is they really knew where to spend the money. Because that $300,000 budget, apparently 70 grand of that went on camera equipment and on this Steadicam, and then another massive chunk went on Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
Who is, like, I actually think, having rewatched it, I think Donald Pleasance is the MVP of the movie. The movie doesn't work without Donald Pleasance in it. He's so...
He's the only one really continuing the film's plot thread across, apart from, obviously, Mike Myers himself.
Well,
because everyone else is just like, is there a guy? I don't know. Someone says there's a guy, but we don't know if there's a guy. He's the only one sitting there going, there is a guy, and he's going to kill you.
But he doesn't really do anything other than sort of... There's literally just one scene of him just waiting by the house going, he's still not here, but I'm going to carry on waiting anyway. He saves the day at the end of the film, but he doesn't really do anything
No.
in the movie up to that.
I was very surprised, because I'd never realised how funny this script actually is.
Right, okay.
Not laugh out loud funny, but there's an awful lot of comedy in the actual script, and most of it is Donald Pleasance.
Sure.
And it's that kind of humour only British actors can do, where it's like that really deadpan sarcasm. Like when they're driving up to the asylum, and he keeps calling Michael Myers an it, doesn't he? And she's like, maybe we could start calling him instead of it. And he's proper just like, whatever you say.
Yeah, he just doesn't care.
One thing, sorry, I know we're going to throw him in, but one thing that sort of surprises me about his character is that he always goes on about how evil Michael Myers is, how he's like evil personified, but he never... How does he know that Michael is evil? Because Michael never speaks, does he? Yeah. Like, he hasn't spoken for years and years and years.
I've been talking to him for years and he just never answers me back.
Yeah, and that's evil. And he knows he's going to go back home. It's like, based on what? Does he leave drawings lying around? Does he just like emit this kind of malevolence, I guess? I don't...
Well, if you watch the Rob Zombie duology, you get an explanation to all of that.
Oh, right, which is?
Rubbish. it's dire. Basically, I mean, in that, obviously, it's not the same. It's a different continuity in reality, but basically, he makes masks which he wears,
right?
And basically, he gets obsessed with making masks. Though in that, Loomis is also a prat. Because I think his name is Loomis in it, isn't it? Yeah. Basically, he's meant to be his psychiatrist in this mental home. And he goes, whenever he puts on a mask, he disappears, and I lose more communication with him. But he never confiscates the masks, and he keeps giving him equipment to make more masks. And he's got a room filled with masks, and you're like, mate,
if only there was some way I could stop these masks.
This man is a perfect normal man unless he gets a mask. Then he becomes a fearless killer.
It's like being in rehab going, God, I just wish they would stop doing heroin, but here's some more heroin.
They just don't seem to stop.
You put it in front of them, next thing you know, they're injecting
No, that's not how you inject heroin. Give it here. Give your arm here.
If you're going to do it properly. Something I did want to say, the first person vibe of the opening shot, I know I keep going back to it, but there's a couple of elements where, at 2 points, I think specifically, we get, before the murder itself, which has the most unconvincing screaming woman. Oh no! Oh, stop stabbing me, Michael! No.
Also, I mean, when you find out he's a kid as well, she's just like, I mean, I know he's got a knife, but I'm sure she could overpower him. The other thing as well with that is when he looks over to the knife,
and
he's just doing that.
Yeah.
Rather than looking where it's going, he's like, I'm just going to watch my arm go back and forth, and then I'll go back.
Yeah,
I didn't think of doing this before.
The intro is definitely style over substance.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant idea. It is a brilliant idea, and the twist of him being a kid is fantastic. Like, it is a belter of an opener.
What I was going to say about it was a much later film and a much less high quality film, I would say, Doom, from 2006. But obviously that had the first person segment, which was a harken back to the video game.
That's the only good bit of the film.
But it is, and it's very like the parts where you get the hand come in, the way the camera moves is very similar to in Doom as it is here. Because the one thing they did do well in Doom with that first person segment was to know where to move things in front of the camera to keep it visually active. And a lot of that, I think, was inspired by this sequence, knowing, like, rather than just have, there's a gun in front and it jiggles back and forth as you walk, things move, the arms move, different things come into frame. And that's very much in this. Like, when he goes into the house and he pulls the knife from the drawer, I think.
Yeah.
You get the arm come in. I sat there going, I wonder how they did that. Because the camera would have been massive.
I happen to know the arm is Deborah Hill, the producer.
Oh, okay.
Because she was the only one with hands small enough that they convincingly look like a child.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, because like, to get that kid's arm around the camera, the size of the cameras back then as well, would have been nigh on impossible.
Complete tangent, but Doom is the only time I've ever seen The Rock play a villain.
Get Smart, he's a villain in Get Smart as well.
He is a villain in Get Smart, but he plays a good guy for the most part. It's just then turns out
same as Doom.
Yes.
Fucking Doom.
You liked Doom. You recommended it on VGMP.
For a video game movie.
We played a drinking game doing that, and I think it's every time they called each other by their call signs, you get fucking slaughtered.
Semper Fi, motherfucker.
That film was trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was... the humour surprised me this time. I didn't remember it being that way. But there are bits of humour that don't land, like the pedo Bob joke.
What the fuck?
The pedo Bob joke, yeah.
I watched that and I was like, hang on. Lindsay? Did he say Lindsay?
Yeah.
And then I rewound it and it was like, he fucking did say Lindsay. And I immediately Googled it because I'd never picked up on that joke before. And there are people...
I missed this joke. What's
right,
when
go on, yeah, you tell it, yeah.
When Bob and Linda are in the car just before they go and have sex.
Right, yeah. Oh, Christ, I thought I misheard
it.
It's
about ripping the clothes off.
Because he says about taking her clothes off and then Lindsay's, which is the...
Yeah, he says, how about you rip my clothes off,
Yeah.
I rip your clothes off, and then we'll rip Lindsay's clothes off.
Yeah, I heard that, but I thought I misheard it, and I thought, no one would put
Surely
a
not.
joke like that in the film. So I just imagined...
Which one's Lindsay?
Lindsay's the little girl.
Ew.
They were the girl.
Yeah.
They were meant to be babysitting Lindsay.
Yeah.
And then when they're going out to have sex, it's like, I'll rip your clothes off, and then you rip my clothes off, and then we'll rip Lindsay's clothes off.
Yeah, and it's bad that he makes a joke, obviously, and you think, well, fuck Bob. But then
she
Linda
laughs.
also
She's like,
laughs at it.
yeah.
She's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking Fred and Rose West.
Which is-
I'm glad Michael killed those cunts.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe Michael Myers is actually... Because he
He's the hero.
kills another paedophile later on, doesn't he? He kills Freddy Krueger.
What?
Michael never kills Freddy Krueger.
You're talking about Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, is it Jason?
And Jason doesn't kill Freddy.
Yeah, he does.
No.
Jamie, you told me in that film that Jason wins.
No.
No, Freddy
They tie.
wins.
Freddy technically wins. Freddy kills Jason, then the humans kill Freddy. But then at the end, they're both still alive again anyway, because god damn it, we can't damage our property.
Yeah, having a beer on the porch together.
Yeah.
Remember
Which
when
is,
I nearly
it
killed
was
you?
it was really weird because the joke right before that one does work when he goes, "I'll rip your clothes off," and she slaps him and goes, "Don't rip this blouse, it's brand new."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think someone took a little bit too much LDS.
Let's
Well,
be
I
honest,
think-
John Carpenter was a massive stoner in the 70s.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I was reading online. I don't know if this is just like Halloween fan people just trying to defend the movie. They were going, "Oh, he meant to say Annie, but like fluffed the line, and then they just left it in by mistake." But
That don't seem like the sort of mistake
No.
John Carpenter makes.
Now, also,
either way, like it's not an essential plot
no.
line, is
Could've-
it? You could
literally
cut
could've
that
been-
scene. So
it literally
that's-
could have been something that was like either A, not noticed on the cutting room floor. I mean, how many times do mistakes make it into Haunted?
Yeah. Imagine John Carpenter.
All those pedo jokes that are in Haunted.
Well, yeah.
I feel like this is the thing, is that I feel like if that was supposed to be a running theme that Bob was a nonce, I feel like they would have seeded that earlier in the film.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say this is one of the issues that I'm going to say mostly nice things about Halloween. I think it's very good. I do think, though, it is a bit thin on character.
Yeah.
And with Bob, for example, I mean, he turns up.
5 minutes.
Yeah, he turns up and he gets killed. I mean, they don't really seed much of anything. You kind of get that Laurie's a smart girl, but that's as much as her characterization probably is.
But that epitomises slashers, doesn't it, of always being thin on character?
I don't think so. I think there are some slasher films that are really good for character.
Which ones would you go with?
I mean, it's massively influenced by Halloween, but I think Scream has got fantastic characters.
Yeah, but I don't think Scream can count, because the whole point is Scream is it is a slasher, parodying. But it almost isn't a slasher. It's satirising slasher.
But what I'm saying is you can have that body count movie with good characterisation in it.
He's not wrong. Scream is an incredible movie. I've seen Scream about 100 times as well.
And we wouldn't have Scream were it not for Halloween, because that is a direct influence, like Kevin Williamson said. So, but I think that is, for me, one of the failings of the film is that. Yes.
One thing I did like that I thought was different in this to most other slashers, and I've never picked up on this before, is how you almost have the three-way narrative, where for most of the film it's Michael is stalking Laurie, Loomis is stalking Michael, and you've got that scene outside the hardware store. I don't know why I never picked up on this before.
Bob is stalking Lindsay.
Where all three stories converge in a really naturalistic way. Because you've got Annie and Laurie pull up to talk to the sheriff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then as the camera turns to see them drive away, Loomis walks into the frame and he talks to the sheriff. The sheriff goes, "I'll be back in 10 minutes." The sheriff leaves the frame and we just hang on Loomis waiting, and Michael drives past behind him.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I got a bit of a kick out of realising that.
You know what? It's interesting the way you use that word. The word "cool." I think I would definitely say that Halloween is a really cool film. It is. For anything else, it's something just so like I said. I think the script has its issues, but it is so cool the way it's directed. The vibe of this film is just like effortlessly
John
cool.
Carpenter film that's pretty cool.
No, I think he's a cool guy. Yeah, he's a dude.
Towards the end, we're going to talk a bit more about John Carpenter's wider career, because I actually have a theory about Carpenter. But
he doesn't make things out of wood.
Oh man, this is getting worse.
Seriously, would any of you like to permanently replace Rory?
So I have a little thing to talk about on terms of lighting, because the lighting in this film is pretty plain for the most part. Generally happens in indie films is that they tend to go for more basic lighting setups.
Not Candy Heart. That's the most colourful fucking film I've ever seen.
Vomited the rainbow over the film.
Like a Monkeys video.
Maybe we could sell it to Skittles and they'll repurpose it as an advert.
But yeah, there's a couple of shots in this that are, and I'm not sure if it's done because of budgetary constraints, but it kind of gives a very strange but really nice look, which is, weirdly enough, the car sequences, because they seem to be lit from the footwells of the car in like almost a bright tungsten yellow. And the outside is kind of either a blue or kind of more sort of murky reddish in terms of the sky colour, depending on where they are during the times of day. But certainly at night, and I noticed this straight away when Donald Pleasance and the nurse were in the car driving to pick up Mike Myers, you have this kind of... It's completely unnatural and unrealistic to have that much light coming from the footwell of your car. Obviously, they've put lights down there to illuminate the actors so you can see them.
Yeah.
But it actually gives a really nice stylistic look to these scenes. And it's something that's not done again. Usually, they try and light from outside the vehicle so it looks more natural. But I actually kind of like the fact that these scenes had that slightly less realistic coloration.
A real moving car? As in, were they cameras inside the car was driving?
I think some of them were,
that might have just been a limitation of that you can't set up lights outside the car.
But I liked the look of that, because you had then this big distinction between the yellow of the interior and the blue or the red of the exterior, which was carried on in Halloween 2018, when they set up some of the lighting setups of that shot of some of those scenes. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I really like that look, and I actually noticed that this lighting setup that they used certainly in the Donald Pleasence and Nurse driving sequence was used later on in the 90s in a couple of cyberpunk films and like sort of adverts that set in a cyberpunky theme. They went with that bright, almost sickly tungsten yellow and the smoky blue, which is what is in that scene with Donald Pleasence and the Nurse. So it just felt like, obviously that found its way into the later culture as well, but not quite as big as the slasher genre that it built.
Yeah. It's a massively influential film, isn't it? And probably people take all kinds of inspiration from various parts of it, I think.
I really like the cinematography in the film. I love the use of the long lingering shots,
Yes.
which I think is one of the reasons, because I actually know someone who went to a cinema. They did a re-release of Halloween a couple of years ago.
They've done it recently, actually. I think,
have they?
they a couple of cinemas shown it at Halloween, obviously.
Well, I knew a guy who's actually Mark, who was one of our guest writers for Haunted. He went to see a re-release of Halloween, and it was all young people, and he was like, Jamie, it was awful. He was like, they were all bored out their minds.
Yeah.
They were all like talking all the way through it.
Yeah.
Fucking kids.
I think to be fair...
let's not...
Yeah, about to say, that's Bob's debate.
I think to be fair, there are moments of this film which, by modern standards, there are lulls.
Well, let's just talk about the first kill that Mike Myers does outside of his sister.
Yeah.
The first genuine kill we see on screen
It's 50 minutes.
54 minutes in,
Yeah.
and that's Annie
Yeah.
strangled in the car.
Don't forget the dog.
And
Well,
Don't forget the dog.
dog, yeah.
Yeah.
I know plenty of horror hounds who are like, yeah, don't care, kills Annie, kills Laurie, he's killed billions in all the sequels, but that fucking dog, how dare you, Michael
Yeah.
Myers?
But the thing is, we know we know that there's a body out because Loomis finds the truck and he's killed the truck driver.
Yes,
Loomis
that's
doesn't
true.
find that body.
Yeah.
It's in the reeds.
Which I'm pretty certain that's a John Carpenter cameo, isn't it? That's John Carpenter playing that body, I
Oh,
think.
really?
Looks like him.
I didn't think it did look like him, but I will go back.
Because the body in a denim shirt.
Shirtless.
Oh, okay.
Shirtless, but he's got the big
Yeah.
I was
mustache.
about to say
that
the
John Carpenter
moustache,
had.
yeah.
Carpenter had quite long hair, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
but
thought,
he
okay.
could be Tommy Lee Wallace, the editor, because he also looks very much like John
Right.
Carpenter.
Maybe that he is John Carpenter.
And he was the production
Yeah.
assistant as well.
I think as well it's because that last part of the movie, because it's basically real time, isn't it? The last third of the film.
Yeah.
And so there are bits where you're watching people walk, like Laurie walks from one house to another, and you're seeing it
I
kind
did
of all
love
happen
those
in real
shots.
time. Sorry?
I did love those shots. The ones that
Yeah.
follow people from house to house.
But also it is...
I think a modern audience would get tired by
Yeah,
those establishing.
I sort of think, do I need to see that door being closed? And I think like they're showing you every single part of it.
For me,
yeah.
one of the things that didn't work was the Laurie character, strangely enough.
Hmm.
Now, I get that she's meant to be book smart, but she didn't
Yeah.
really have any... And this comes back to the paper thin characterization that became sort of quite common in slasher films, or certainly the worst of slasher films,
Well,
not all the slasher films.
I think they're not necessarily paper thin, but you get that stereotype, like the jock,
Yeah.
the cheerleader, the stoner.
But she didn't really have a character.
Hmm.
Like, she's like, you're the smart girl with the big pop socks who dresses like a 1850s housewife and just mope around.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really many points where she came in with some levity. And I'm not talking about during the murder sequences, but I mean, like, you've got 50 minutes of her there enough chatting
Yeah.
with her friends, and she always seems to be... I'm like,
Yeah, there's no backstory, is
No.
there, for Laurie?
And actually, the
Yeah.
friendship between her and her friends didn't feel 100% real to me.
Ooh,
because
okay. I think her and Annie, I
later on, her and Annie, basically,
Yeah.
her and Annie work when they get into the car and start smoking the weed, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
But the first time we meet them all together, her and the other two girls...
the one that says totally.
Walking down the street.
That's her character, is that she says totally a lot.
Yeah.
Totally.
But there's not really much chemistry between them as friends, and also they both seem to basically just be slamming on Laurie, and she doesn't seem, she's not like joking back or being part of that conversation. She's just like, "Oh, you're a stupid bookworm." She's like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, it just feels like bullying at this point. Like, are you in on this joke, or are you just being slammed, Laurie? Like, what's going on?
Sometimes friendship groups, you just have that one person you all slam on though.
Yeah.
It's true.
And I suppose it sets her up as being an unlikely hero because she looks like she's weak and pushed around. So when she fights back against Michael, it's like, oh, okay, cool.
She has got fight in her.
Yeah.
But it is interesting as well that she's basically, it's also establishes the virginal trope for the surviving woman, because the other two girls get murdered and they're both basically having sex or going to have sex.
Yeah.
And
And
Myers
Michael
comes and does the work of the good Lord
Yeah.
to prevent them from having extramarital sex.
Fun fact about that interpretation. So Carol Clover, who is very
Final girl theory.
she theorized a lot about Halloween and slashers in general being morality plays about this killer comes and punishes you for having sex. But John Carpenter has actually commented directly on this and said that she's actually got the whole thing backwards, and that Laura, because she was saying Michael's killing them because he's sexually frustrated.
It's his way.
It.
It's his way of penetrating them with
Yeah.
his phallic objects.
But
Is the knife, isn't
John
it? Yeah.
Carpenter actually disagrees and says the opposite is true. He says Laurie is the most sexually frustrated character in the film.
Right, yeah.
And
She's surrounded by people who are humping all the
Yeah.
time.
And don't stop talking about it either.
Yeah.
All right, we get it. You're having sex. Big fucking whoop.
She stabs Michael.
Yeah.
And that's almost...
She penetrates him.
She
Yeah.
penetrates
Yeah,
him.
it's the phallic appropriation, isn't it? Thereby castrating him.
If I can quote Deadpool, Happy Women's Liberation Day.
I was about to say, and then the scene they cut where she pegs him for 20 minutes.
So I will...
Probably would sort out a lot of his problems, I think. Yeah.
In the interest of being fair, I do have some problem with like the last act of the film.
Go for it.
Not a major one, not that stops my enjoyment of it at all, because some of my favourite moments are in that last act.
For sure.
Like the bit which it's a shot I've tried to copy a million times in things I've made, when she backs up against the closet and
Yeah.
he fades out of the darkness. I love that.
Yeah.
That final act, it's not choreographed that well, in the sense of, one, Laurie, it only goes as long as it does because A, Laurie constantly drops the knife after she gets it, and two, there's actually bits where Michael Myers just stops because the house they're in is not actually that big. And there's bits where they need time for her to get further away with the kids. In particular, it's when he comes up the stairs after she's done the knitting needle and she thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
He comes up the stairs and the kids scream. She hushes the kids into the room and she goes and fakes him out, doesn't she? By opening the balcony doors and going in the closet.
Which doesn't work at all. He doesn't. I don't think he even checks the balcony, does he?
Yeah. Michael...
I thought, oh, that's really clever of her, and he was like, no.
It doesn't work here because you actually see in the edit, Michael just kind of stands at the top of the stairs for like 5 seconds.
You do get a physicality issue that he's got about like a foot and a half on her, and he's sort of like in 3 steps would just catch up to her.
This is
Maybe
what I'm saying,
he
yeah.
gets very easily winded though, and he just needs to take a breath.
Maybe. But it doesn't stop my enjoyment of the film at all. But and I still think this is the best version of Michael Myers. Because for me, what all of the sequels get wrong that this one gets right, and to be fair to the sequels, by virtue of being sequels, they can't really keep doing this. This is the only one convincingly where there is a question to whether Michael is a human or not.
Yeah.
Where it's... Because you get just as much evidence for, he is a flesh and blood man. And then as it goes on, he becomes more and more...
Invincible, supernatural. Yeah.
And I didn't notice until I watched a video on the cinematography. You don't see Michael clearly until after he kills Annie. He's always obscured before that.
Right.
He's
like
always
by
in
the
the
hedge.
he's always in the
Or
distance, or
Yeah.
you're seeing him through net curtains and stuff, almost like he's a ghost.
Yeah.
And then this obviously is acknowledged when he literally walks in as a ghost, doesn't he?
I never understood that bit. It's like,
Michael-
right, I've murdered him. I want to kill her. She's waiting to have sex. I'll put on this sheet and cut out 2 eye holes and just slowly walk
essentially
in.
got the brain of a child.
Yeah, I know, but like...
And a good sense of humour, obviously.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, nobody liked my comedy routine, so I had to stab them.
Yeah.
I think this film does speak to the simplicity or the strength in simplicity as
Yeah.
well. Where because I think just a lot of horror films that come out in the last sort of 20 years, if you think of things like It Follows, where it's like, oh yeah, it's a demon that hunts you, but it can only be transferred by the person if you have sex with them, and it transfers, or Sinister, where it's like, okay, yeah, so if you watch the films in the house, the Bagul doesn't attack you then, he actually attacks you when you move to the next house, but through your child, and it's like...
Is that what Sinister is?
Yeah,
I watched that recently.
I've seen Sinister once, and it was really boring, and I fell asleep in it.
Yeah, Bagul only attacks you when you move home, and then it possesses your child to attack you, and it's like... This is the most fucking... It's contrived, and it's so... Yeah, it's like, why does it need to be this complicated?
You want to hear convoluted? I read an academic, and I can't remember who it was. There's an academic whose interpretation of Halloween is that it's a commentary on white flight syndrome.
White flight?
That's when white people move out of communities because too many immigrants move in.
But there's no immigrants in Haddonfield.
No, I'd imagine that's the suburb that they've moved to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Something about moving to suburban gated communities doesn't protect you from the evil, which is like that bit I get. I can see where they're going with that, but where's the immigrants coming to? Michael Myers is not an immigrant.
No, I guess.
Well, to be fair, he's immigrated in from the prison.
Metaphor like essays and shit. You can, I mean, there's the guy who did the whole thing where he did I think he did an entire dissertation on why a red door means communism and why a red door means capitalism from literally just the same thing. To prove that you can literally infer anything from anything.
Yeah.
There's just to shout out to another podcast. There's another podcast I really like called We Hate Movies. It's been going for like 13 years now, and I was listening to them at work the other day, and they literally made me laugh out loud. And I know you'll appreciate this because I know you're a believer in this fan theory. They were on about the fan theory that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord in Star Wars prequels.
He is.
And the guy on the show fucking loses his shit, and he's like, no, stop trying to make these films good, just accept that they're garbage.
It doesn't save the film, the fact that there's a theory.
It just makes more sense because he is the Phantom Menace.
And also the fact that they animate him literally lip syncing with Liam Neeson as if manipulating him from the back, and he's a CGI creature. So you wasted money doing that if you weren't going to do it to put it towards.
And it's why
something.
Count Dooku comes out of nowhere in the second film.
Yeah.
It's because they had to retcon the villain.
Or is it just because George Lucas is not actually a good filmmaker?
I mean, it could be both.
It could be both. It
Both
probably is
can
both.
exist.
In fact, the film that he has the least involvement with is the best Star Wars film, which is 5. So, which is John Carpenter? Was he the director or the writer of Halloween 2?
He only wrote Halloween 2.
I was trying to remember because I knew he only did one.
You could tell because the direction is nowhere near as good in Halloween 2, and the script isn't.
I mean, it doesn't have that cool vibe that Halloween has.
And there's something a bit chill to the way that John Carpenter. It feels like you kind of sit back and get taken on the journey with John Carpenter,
right.
Whereas a lot of filmmakers will try and lead you there.
It just feels to me like he's just a very secure and confident director. Like you were saying about the simplicity thing, it's like I don't need to do all of this shit. I can just set it up with a long shot and film it for 30 seconds, and I'll cut when you have to cut. I won't cut for the sake of cutting. It's very assured, confident,
it's
cool
that thing
filmmaking.
when they say with like performing on stage is that if you feel safe and secure with an actor, you will let them do anything sort of thing because you make the audience feel comfortable if you're comfortable sort of thing. It's the exact same thing.
You're in safe hands.
He's so confident in his ability that you're confident in watching the film.
Put it this way, because I don't think either of you have seen Halloween 2.
No.
Michael's first kill, think of how Michael moves in this film. He's always very assured, very cool.
Yeah.
In Halloween 2, Michael's first kill, which I think is his first appearance on the film, there's a woman, and he pops up from the bottom of the frame, doing a little leapfrog like he's fucking Rey Mysterio coming out on the ramp, and then shanks this woman in the neck.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what was that? What doesn't help is that Michael's mask is yellow in the second one.
The masks have been shit since the first.
So the reason it's yellow in the second one is because it's the same mask. It's literally the one they used from the first one.
Did it like weather or something?
It had been stored in Deborah Hill, the producer's house, for 3 years, and she was a notorious chain smoker. The nicotine had dyed the mask yellow.
Oh, no.
But
Because
just
The Mask never got good again. I mean,
the best one is that first one where it was dirt cheap, where they just got
was
a
just
William Shatner mask.
turned inside out and spray painted white.
Yeah, like that's the best. Because
I
all
think-
the
Because
others have
William
looked-
Shatner's scary. That's as we all know.
William, no, not
He
William.
doesn't
sorry.
like it when
I
you
think
bring it up. You know, have you ever seen? Have you ever
To
seen an
be
interview
fair,
with
would
Shatner
you
where
if
they
it's
bring
like
it up?
one of the most notorious mass murderers on cinema? Oh, it's your face, is
Is
it?
your face turned inside out? I feel like if you turn anyone's face inside out and spray paint it, it's not going to look great.
I wonder how different it is turning it inside out, though.
I mean,
What, his face?
Well, I
Yeah,
never
well,
heard
have you
this-
seen those? I think it's that. There's a video of a Charlie Chaplin mask where they rotate it like around 360 degrees of a mask of it, and then at a certain point it looks like it's concave rather than convex or vice
Oh,
versa.
yeah.
So so it looks the same. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, what was I about to say? We were talking about
The Mask.
The Mask. Yeah, Halloween Ends. I guess when it's all like burnt and stuff, that's probably the best The Mask looked since then.
This is
but
the problem though. In all these new films, they overdo it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What works so good?
Overproduce the mask.
What works so good about that first one is it's plain as shit.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. It's a simplistic script. It's a quite simplistic style. It's quite a simplistic everything, but
You
it
don't
works.
watch it sitting there going, but this mask is really basic.
Yeah.
You know, because it's what
It's
the mask
not-
represents, not the,
Yeah,
you know.
it's not a Nolan film. It's not 3-hour fucking convoluted like Tenant or anything. It's simple, but it
I would be
speaks to the
interested in
strength
it-
of simplicity.
Yeah, an hour and 30 or whatever it is. I like when I put it again, and this week I watched it and I forgot the length of the movie, and it just came up like I recorded it off the TV, and I think it was an hour and 38 with adverts, and I was just like, thank Christ, like a good 90-minute film.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
so
you.
sick of
Thank
2-hour
you.
40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, but just on John Carpenter's future stuff, I mean, yeah, his career pretty much. I mean, he's had a few duds. Everyone's had a few duds here and there, but I mean, I can't think of many things that. It's one of the few directors we agree on as pretty much at a.
Well, I want to talk about the rest of his filmography in a minute. So the ending of the film.
Can I raise one other thing
Yeah.
before we jump to the ending? Going back into the car scenes again, I don't know why. All of the interesting shots that I saw seem to be in the cars. This time during the day, during the weed smoking scene in the car, there's a point where the camera is inside the car behind Laurie and
Annie.
while they're driving and smoking. Now there is a quote-unquote mistake that was considered to be a mistake in cinematography at the time, which has now become so in vogue within the last 10 years in film that it makes that shot look really fresh.
Yeah.
Which is, while they're driving, certainly when it looks past Annie, the sun is in the shot, and they obviously couldn't get around it because they didn't have much budget and they couldn't put it in a studio. So they've just filmed them driving during a day where the sun's quite low. And you get this horizontal lens flare
Okay.
cut across the screen, and it's really nice. And you'd watch it, you're like, oh, that's a really cool lens flare effect. And then you realise, in the 70s, lens flares were considered an error. Whereas, like, certainly by the time of J.J. Abrams overdoing them to death, but they sort of had a bit of a revival, and now you get a lot of films where they'll add lens flares because it makes it look more quote-unquote cinematic.
The only lens flare there's 2 lens flares I've liked. One was when the Star Killer base is fired and all the little red beams are coming out, and there's the still lens flare on that when they're actually on the planet looking up.
What's that from?
That's the 7th Star Wars. It's the only
Oh,
good
I've
thing.
seen
It's
that
the
one.
only good thing about those sort of things. And actually, it's from Candy Heart. There's a scene where Candy walks into what was my bedroom, and she shines the light across, and you get that kind of like flash as it goes across the light, and it actually looks really good.
Yeah.
I did that intentionally.
I mean, it was an intentional shot because it's the way you've
See?
set it up. So,
But yeah, lens flares have sort of become the vogue. I think they've been overused nowadays, which is quite the opposite. But it is interesting. While I was watching this, I was like, "It's a good damn lens flare. You don't normally see that in 70s films. That's
Yeah.
nice to see."
So the ending of the film then. I love the ending to this film because it's like a classic ghost story ending.
Yeah.
What did everyone else think though?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I really like that Halloween. I think you were saying earlier it's not derivative, and I would agree with that. But I'd also say that it really does show its love of the genre on its sleeve, and there are definite nods to things like Psycho, obviously, but also like when Loomis is driving to hospital, and you've got like the thunder and lightning, and it is like going to an old haunted house. So yeah, I think that ending scene is fantastic. The bit where Laurie discovers those 3 bodies in quick succession. Michael does like to sort of stage things. He like puts the tombstone on there, doesn't he? He's like, I'm going to put this one over here, and then she'll go there. But when you're watching it, it's just fantastic.
Also,
like,
where was he storing that? Like, because he obviously
Yes,
stole the gravestone, and then he was walking around following Laurie. It's like,
he's hench as fuck. He probably just had it like strapped to his back the whole
Could have been
time.
in the
just
car.
wearing it as a fanny pack.
Could have been in the car.
Yeah,
That's true enough.
yeah.
Sometimes the simple explanations are best, eh, Benton?
I just love that it literally just ends with still shots
Yeah.
of all the locations of the
Empty,
film,
yeah.
and his breathing,
Yeah.
like he could be anywhere.
Yeah, and just that bit where she momentarily pulls the mask off, and it's when you really see his vulnerability, don't you? Because that's when Loomis is able to get the shot off at him, where he tries to scramble to get the mask back on.
Yeah, he feels too revealed, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Which is what I was saying earlier about this film is the only one that perfectly balanced the is he a man, is he a not? Because you have that moment of unmasking where it's like, oh, this is just a man. But
a very young man as well, isn't he?
21.
You can see,
21.
He's like youthful but kind of monstrous expression.
Yeah, but then literally 30 seconds later, he survives 6 gunshots and a fall off a balcony.
And he'll go off on a fantastic spree just moments later, won't he, in Halloween 2?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know, Halloween 2 literally starts
Picks up.
where this one ends.
Right.
So you do get a weird dissonance effect in it, because when you watch just Halloween 1 on its own, by the time you get to the ending, you're like, oh, it's like 1 a.m. at this point. Like, all the trick-or-treaters are gone, it's late. Halloween 2, obviously, because they've got to fill the rest of the night, all of a sudden, all the trick-or-treaters are back on the street, and you're like, hang on, was Michael chasing her at like 8 p.m?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty quiet, isn't it, in Haddonfield when it's all happening?
Yeah.
It is frustratingly dark, that last sequence, which is, I think, the logic part of you is like, turn the light on, you're going into like this really scary house, just flick a light switch, please. But then that's kind of part of the joy of these slasher stalker films, is getting irritated with the stupidity of the characters.
But also you're letting Michael know which room you're in when the massive like blaring light comes. You only room
just
the light on.
get everything on. Like, let's just know what we're dealing with. Yeah. I'm not going to wander around a house in the dark.
But also, I think it adds to the fear of the film. And
it's brilliant.
I mean, it's showing the budgetary shortage of the film is like keeping things in the dark gives you more room to work with.
Yeah, and it's effective. It's scary. It's exactly that thing of like, we don't know where he's hiding.
Yeah.
So it completely works, and it does make that whole final sequence really gripping.
So before we move on and just talk about John Carpenter briefly, does anyone want to sum up their thoughts on Halloween having watched it?
I was just going to ask, do you think, because obviously in the perfect world, Halloween would have been left as it was and not had the night of the jack-o'-lanterns and H2O and Resurrection and the Rob Zombie remake.
Season of the Witch, I think you're thinking of.
Yeah, that Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Do we think that those films have retroactively made Halloween 1 better or worse?
Better, I would have thought.
I wish they didn't exist, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think this film would be so much nicer if it was a one and done thing.
Yeah.
I think Halloween 1, the film, hasn't been diminished.
No,
Michael Myers has been diminished.
Right.
I think.
I don't have much opinion on that because I haven't seen those sequels.
You've seen the Gordon Green one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I thought they were better than this.
Right.
Whoa.
Not
Even
necessarily
Halloween Kills?
No, not necessarily Halloween Kills, but Halloween Ends and Halloween 2018 is better than this.
You're fired.
Yeah, sorry, man, but no, honestly, it's not a bad film, but it's kind of unfortunate because usually when something starts like this, obviously kick-started the slasher genre. Everything in it is cliche, and that's fine if you're looking at film from a historical perspective. You can take that on board, the way that we all have. Watch it and go, yeah, it's all cliche, but it invented those cliches. Whereas I don't think in a general audience sense, because general audiences really don't care that much about the integrity of the art or the history of the art, unfortunately.
Well, someone in the general audience just beat the living shit out of a 63-year-old man because he sat in his in the VIP seat he'd booked.
Wait, what?
In Florida.
Florida Man.
An old man came in and was like, "Hey, you're sitting in the seat that I booked." Apparently, politely asked him to move from the VIP seat that he booked, and then the man proceeded to beat the ever-loving shit out of him.
Wonderful.
Right,
That was
nice.
just now.
But I don't think that there's a reason for a modern audience to watch this outside of people like us who are really engaged in film. Because all of the horror tropes that are in this are done elsewhere in a way that would be a little bit more accessible. And also the slow pace of this film would probably put off a modern audience. The final part that I'll put on it, and you guys can all tell me how I'm wrong, is basically, usually when something starts off the tropes, there is still something about that film that is unique. Maybe it's just me because I'm not big into horror, but I didn't see anything in this that I would classify as unique.
That's just because it's been done to death.
Yeah, but I mean, usually there'll be like a subplot or a storyline or a meaning that, even if it's only about, say, in this case, the 70s itself, it would be something a little bit more deeper and more meaningful that would make the film last a bit longer.
It's about white flight.
Well, I mean, if that was the case, but I actually didn't see that myself.
To be fair, I think I still think, I don't know if it's unique as in it's never been done, but the existence of Loomis sets this apart, I think, because most slashers are young cast Friday the 13th, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Young cast turn up at Crystal Lake, they're picked off one by one, and we're done. You don't usually have this element of there is someone hunting the killer.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that is interesting, I suppose, but I don't think they did much with him.
No.
And that may have been to do with cost, because they probably couldn't afford Donald Pleasance for a long period of time.
All
but-
his scenes had to be filmed first,
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
could only have him for, I think it was a week.
Yeah,
Right.
which makes sense, to be honest, for a low-budget film like this.
Yeah, because you got to remember, he was, like, at the time, no one else, Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't well-known. He just, like, not long come off of being a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because he's Blofeld in one of the Bond films.
Sure.
Just to say on Jamie Lee Curtis, I do love that it's like Janet Leigh's daughter from Psycho. It's like
Such a good
fantastic. Yeah.
What-
That sort of is carried on that lineage.
What about you, Benton? Final thoughts on Halloween?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's
So good, bro.
Okay.
a simple film. It's a simple, that's a simple opinion for a simple film. It's not, simple is probably the wrong word for it. I think, and threadbare isn't right either. The word I'm looking for isn't quite there, but it doesn't need the bells and whistles to be good.
Yeah.
Because it's
Do you not think something like... so, for example, following Carpenter films such as The Thing, which was a really amazing look at paranoia and the lack of being able to trust your fellow man.
oh, that's my favourite film.
Yeah, and They Live, which goes on about, capitalism and, things that there were extra layers to that. Do you not think that there was a way of adding a layer like that to Halloween?
I don't think there was room for, as in, like, what layer would you put in a film about a guy in a white mask going around slashing people?
It's a good point.
But I think what you're saying is what's so good about Halloween is that it is so simple. It's like a simple, well-prepared dish. Like sort of 3 ingredients, but they're all really good, well-prepared. Like
it's like bangers and mash.
Yeah,
Bangers
yeah.
and mash it's not foie gras. It's not fast food. It's good, and it's
Bangers and mash now.
it's just a good hearty meal. And
and sometimes that's like you really crave that, don't you? If someone was like, I can.
And at the end of the day, you say there's no deeper layer, but people like this white flight thing. People still look for meaning and stuff where there often is an absence of meaning. There's no. I think it's just very much that John Carpenter was served the opportunity to create a film about Michael Myers killing teenagers, and he did it to the best of his ability. And I feel like if any of us were given that opportunity, we would want to do the same.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up by just talking briefly about John Carpenter himself. Because I have a thing now, I've turned my phone off, so I actually can't get his filmography up in front of me.
Yeah.
But I seem to recall that from this, starting with Halloween, from 78 to 88 with They Live, it's pure gold from John Carpenter. Are there any other directors who've had a run that good? Like, I don't mean box office hit.
For a 10-year run, you mean, of really great movies.
not a
Yeah.
doubt. Obviously, there was Escape from LA is probably his
That's
worst
not till
film.
the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say They Live is great in concept, but I feel like it's a brilliant concept of. I don't like Rowdy Roddy Piper in it. I feel like it should have been a proper
Actor.
no.
It's weird that you've got this incredibly hench, basically homeless guy.
Yeah.
You're like, where is this guy like working out?
Where's
They
the-
got a gym in Skid Row that I don't know about.
Should have been Hulk Hogan
I like
instead.
your idea about
More
being
realistic.
Arnie. I came to chew bubble gum and kick ass.
It's weird that you choose a story about literally the most downtrodden people in the society, and you're like, who are going to get to play this incredibly complex and incredibly heartfelt role? Rowdy Roddy Piper.
I'd love to know the story of how that happened, actually.
It's just because I think he was popular at the time, and the studio probably went, "You need to put someone big in it." And Rowdy Roddy Piper was probably at the height of his career.
But even then, like, Rowdy Roddy Piper was... if we're going to go with it has to be a wrestler, Rowdy Roddy Piper was not, like, that level. Like,
Yeah, but you couldn't put Hulk Hogan in it.
Why not?
Yeah.
Late 80s was the
but
decade of
I think
trying to
it's,
make
I think it's the
Hogan work.
budget
in
where
that
they didn't have a
story.
big enough budget to
For
get
Hogan.
the biggest person, but they needed to put someone big in and
Yeah.
couldn't get the biggest, and they probably couldn't afford whoever the biggest actors in the late 80s
Should have
were.
been Macho Man Randy
It
Savage.
shouldn't have been a wrestler.
Oh, the story is ready.
These aliens are leaving my planet now.
Elbow drops him.
But then this is the thing. I went into it expecting The Thing, and got a very, very campy experience where Keith David and Rowdy Roddy Piper wrestle for 10 minutes straight, and it's not relevant to anything.
But it's awesome.
But this is the thing. I feel like if I went back to it and had a few beers and just like went into it like expecting ultra camp and watched it with some mates, I feel like I'd love it.
Because they'd be dead. Like, you watch what they actually do to each other in a fight, one of them would not walk away from that.
But also, why are they fighting like that?
Because he won't put the goddamn glasses on.
Yeah.
It's the most aggressive Ray-Ban marketing campaign ever.
It is. But this is the thing. I feel like maybe this is the thing about John Carpenter, is that all of his films you have to be in a specific mood to watch them, and the mood is different for each film.
Yeah.
There are some films that are just ubiquitous, like Marvel films are like, you can probably be in any mood and you'll get some level of enjoyment. It'll be small, but there's some level. And then obviously there's Nolan films where it's like, I've got to set aside a day for this because it's a thing. Whereas like John Carpenter, it's like, I want to see teens get slashed up. I'm in that mood. Halloween. I want a deep meditation on paranoia. Boom, I go for The Thing. I want to watch a campy wrestling film where it's you got They Live. I want to watch a Lovecraftian, because you've really they're all very different. And another one of his a massive one, Assault on Precinct 13. It's a fucking incredible film.
I want to see that film.
It's so good.
I've actually never seen the original. I've only seen the remake.
Oh no! Don't do that to yourself.
But Carpenter's quite interesting, isn't he? Because he's like, he's a very shrewd, I would say, businessman, because he's kind of gone on record saying that he's not a massive horror guy, but Halloween was just such a huge success. It was like, the studios were offering me a fuck ton of money to carry on making horror, so I've kind of ended up being known as a horror director. And yes, he has done other things, but I think it was more sci-fi, wasn't it, or westerns? I think he really wanted to do westerns.
I think sci-fi as well, because Dark Star is student films.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
loves. He's come out saying
Big
he loves
Howard Hawks fan,
He
isn't
loves
he?
Lovecraftian stuff,
Right,
which is
yeah.
quite horror in nature.
He's
but-
on record, like someone said to him in an interview once, because he owns the rights to Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And they were like, why do you keep letting them make sequels and ruin your franchise? And he literally just turned and went, as long as the check's clear, I don't care. Leave me alone.
I think it's not so much that he's got an eye for horror. I think, or not so much that he likes horror. I think it's just he's got a really good eye for tension. In stuff like Assault on Precinct 13, the tension is just right throughout it.
Yeah, I think you're right actually, because it's like Halloween again doesn't have a lot of quote unquote horror,
but it's got tension.
54 minutes before you see someone get murdered.
Yeah.
It's building the tension.
But that's
whole
what
time.
the thing is. The thing is just 2 hours
Yeah.
of tension.
Yeah.
It's tension. It's knowing when to build tension, when to release it. And I think he's just had a really good eye for it.
It does make me feel really sad, and apparently he's very happy, so who cares? But it makes me really sad that he had this great run in the 80s, dipped in the 90s, and basically, other than one failed comeback in 2008,
Dracula.
that's The Ward with
okay.
Amber Heard in it.
Right.
Basically, his career is over.
Right.
And he's lost the passion. Like they said to
Yeah.
him in interviews, like, "Are you ever going to come back to making film?" And he literally was like, "Probably not." He was like, "I'm not interested
He's
anymore."
making a video game now.
Yeah, he's making a video.
Made a lot of music, isn't he?
He's
as
doing
well?
music. He has.
But
said in
you
the
know what? He's an
past-
old guy though. Like, let him enjoy his retirement. I think he smokes a fuckload of weed and
Yeah.
lives in Hollywood or whatever.
Can you
And
talk about that? How he did the theme song? How brilliant the theme song for Halloween is.
yeah.
it is good. It is good. I'm going to say one thing though about it. Right. That opening scene, there's one bit obviously got the and then the bit where the boy comes down the stairs, he just holds one note forever. It just goes like that. And you're like, okay, you're going to add something to this note. We're going to build it up. We're going to and it just goes on and on for I reckon over a minute of holding one note. And you're like, come on,
I think
mate.
he scored most of it. I think the only film he didn't score was the Thing, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Enrico
Ennio Morricone, yeah.
Which he then scored. Tarantino's Hateful Eight.
yeah.
He scored that and actually used some of the unused ones in The Thing because Hateful Eight is inspired by The Thing.
Yeah.
And
Is that as well? Did the Hateful Eight score get nominated for an Oscar, or was it one of those ones where it couldn't get nominated because the music had been used elsewhere before?
It could have been, it might have been exactly that because it was unused. The Thing tracks were
Right.
then used in the Hateful Eight because obviously the Hateful Eight is a whole paranoia story too.
And Snowy.
And Snowy.
Yeah.
And Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And these
I love Kurt Russell. Just quickly,
I love Kurt Russell, yeah.
Russell again, best part of the MCU when he's in it. It's one of those actors that the second you put him in something, he's the best part in it.
I
love
still
him in
want
The
to see
Thing.
Soldier. I've got it on Blu-ray now, but I'm intrigued because it's the writer who wrote Blade Runner, like the script of Blade Runner, not the original novel. And I'm
Because the original novel was what?
Philip K. Dick.
No, the name of it would do Androids
Androids
Dream of
Dream of
Electric Sheep. Yeah.
The script writer for that for the film.
Do you know, is it Hampton Fancher or David Peoples?
David Peoples?
Right, yeah.
Wrote Soldier, and there's a lot of references to Blade Runner. It's meant to be in the same universe.
I forgot you're the biggest Blade Runner expert in
Only,
town.
I don't know because I like it, especially it's because I've just taught it
Yeah,
for
that's
years.
because you taught it.
Yeah.
Do you not like it?
It's not that I don't like it. It just doesn't do anything for me. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I get everything about this film. It's very well made. I think it's got some really interesting ideas, but I am not moved by it in any way. It's not.
That's how I feel about Halloween.
Yeah.
Whereas I am moved by Blade Runner. I'm not moved by Halloween.
Yeah.
So maybe there's.
I think there's a bit too
Interesting to see
manly
what
for me, Blade Runner.
I fucking love Blade Runner.
Yeah.
More.
I think you're more manly than I am, though. That's the, yeah.
We
I
have-
feel-
I'm definitely not.
like, Ridley Scott is a very sort of male director, isn't he? He's like,
We've
Yeah.
had this discussion on the show already because we've pre-recorded like 20 of these. At this
Okay.
point. And we've had this because like Rory really likes like biker films and things like that.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, I find biker films fucking awful. Generally speaking.
I'd say it's quite a niche genre. I don't know
think
many,
I've ever
but
seen
apart from
biker
Easy
film.
Rider, it's the only biker film. I can think
Roadhouse
of.
is probably, if you count as a biker film.
Well, Roadhouse is funny because it's so macho it becomes incredibly homoerotic.
Yeah.
We've obviously got the seminal biker film, which are basically
Wild
the
Ones.
Halloween. Yeah, the Wild One.
Yeah.
To be fair, wait, the line between manly and homoerotic can
Yeah.
be so easily crossed
yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth, and
Yeah.
I love that.
yeah.
Like Top Gun goes from manly to
Yeah.
homoerotic and back.
That I can
Predator
get
does
on
as
board
well.
with. That I can get on board with. But yeah, when it's like po-face masculinity, like I think in Blade Runner, I'm a bit like. "Mm."
Okay, so to answer your question of any potential directors that may have had like a 10-odd year run of quality films.
And it can't be like they made 2 films in the whole
No.
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick sort of thing.
Yeah,
isn't
fuck
it?
you, Kubrick.
Mind you, I mean, well, to be fair to Kubrick, he was prolific at one point,
Yeah.
ish, and yeah,
then
you
he
could
died.
argue he never really
Yeah.
put a foot wrong, with the exception of Eyes Wide Shut. And I know even there would be some people who would say that's a great movie. So
I've heard good things about Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes
Yeah.
Wide Shut is probably actually my favourite Kubrick, next to The Shining.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, who are you
But-
going to throw out?
As an option, though the film getting an E, depending on your viewpoint, may throw it, Takeshi Kitano.
Right.
Talking about if we can open it up to global Japanese director,
I'm afraid not as incredibly xenophobic podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's about white flight, damn it.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
This is the
he's-
Brexit film podcast.
But
Next week's guest is Nigel Farage.
I know this one probably a bit more content. Sorry.
That's right. No. It's, Takeshi Kitano had a very good run from. I mean, Violent Cop was okay, but certainly Senishine's second film was really good, and then the run from that all the way through. I mean, Brother is probably my favourite film. It's also one of his more accessible films, which was about 2002. So you got a good solid 10-year run there. Getting Any is kind of the one that's on the fence because I'm half and half with Getting Any. All of his films were kind of either dramatic films, things like Hanabi or Kikujiro, which are about heartfelt, emotional stories, or they were gangster flicks such as Senishin and Brother and several other films. But basically, Getting Any was the only comedy film he ever made. He is a comedian in Japan. All of his films have some levity to them, but Getting Any was the only pure comedy. And half of that film is genius, and half of that film is garbage.
Right.
And to the point where, for my own enjoyment, I recut the film to get rid of all the bits I didn't like.
Sound like those toxic men who cut Daisy Ridley out of the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
How does the film even work without Daisy Ridley?
Well, I mean,
Not
The
well.
only film I've edited.
I haven't seen it because fuck those
No.
people. Yeah.
The only
I only did it
film
for my own enjoyment for the comedy
Yeah.
side. I'm not
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
it going, this is how it should be.
Just so happened that only had women in those bits, Rory. But
The only film I've edited is The Thing, which is I took the god awful scene that he was forced to edit, the god awful scene he was forced to add by the studio of the ship, and literally the first scene with the ship's like wobbling and you can see the fucking strings and everything coming down to earth. Was asked to put that in because of screen testers.
Okay.
So I just chipped that bit out.
Is this a common thing then? People just edit films for their
Not
own
commonly,
enjoyment?
but some people, like, if you...
I've never done it, I don't
think
think,
it's
yeah.
really like...
I have the original.
Yeah.
I have the original as well. That's
Well,
just I can't
Carpenter
stand a
didn't
film
want-
that ends with
Yeah.
a man turning into the human fly and being crushed by a big fly swatter into a big pile of shit.
Yeah.
I was like that.
Well, have you seen The Fly?
Well, no, that's the also the
Perfect
ending
film.
of Getting Any.
Yeah, well, two.
Cronenberg might be somebody who's had a 10-year run of absolute gold, actually.
So I'm really
Oh.
controversial with Cronenberg. We're going to do some Cronenbergs at some point.
Yeah.
I've only seen one Cronenberg, The Crash, and I hated it.
Crash is one of the only films I didn't finish. I got halfway through, I turned it off. I thought it was
You're
so
so turned on, you had
What's his
to.
But The
video game?
Fly I really liked.
Fly is amazing.
Haven't seen The Fly.
Dead Ringers is great.
Seen Existence, that was garbage.
Oh, two I was going to put forward. I think Sam Raimi's run from Evil Dead to Spider-Man 2 is pretty much flawless.
Yeah.
And
The only one I haven't seen in that run is Quick and the Dead. I haven't seen that yet.
I've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
that's quite good. And also Edgar Wright's right, I'd say. I personally don't believe he's had any duds.
Edgar who?
Edgar Wright.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Hot Fuzz is garbage. What?
Hot Fuzz is incredible.
Hot Fuzz is the best of that.
It is not.
That's not that's not a 10-year run though.
Oh,
It's been
okay,
more than
okay,
10
okay.
years from Shaun of the Dead to.
Fair enough.
If I was going to put a drop in Edgar Wright's, it would be for Scott Pilgrim.
No, I like Scott.
I love
Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, the thing is, it's too poppy for me.
I think Scott Pilgrim is cool.
I don't hate it.
I reckon it needs an edit. I reckon we could get rid of some of the X's.
The worst part.
You're going to
of
chop the
Scott
women
Pilgrim-
out of the...
The worst part.
Get rid of the boy X's.
The worst part of Scott Pilgrim is probably Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim.
Right. Okay.
I think
He's very good in the new Barbie, by the way. Michael
he?
Cera.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved him in Arrested Development, but the rest of his
yeah, he's
career since
fantastic in
there
that.
has just kind of been. Yeah.
Anyway, I think we've probably finished talking
Yeah.
about Halloween. Thank you for listening, everybody. This whole month is going to be filled with Halloween movies. So, as Rory's already alluded to, we've recorded episodes talking about Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and both of the Rob Zombie Halloweens. Dear Lord.
Are you going to watch a good Rob Zombie film? Not that there are many. but
So we're going to
Do
do...
they exist?
So at some
Devil's
point,
Rejects?
So at some point we're doing Devil's Rejects, which in my opinion is the best film and one of possibly the only good Rob. Oh no, El Super Beasto is also good.
House of a Thousand Corpses, is that?
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's just, House of Thousand Corpses is basically him going, if I made Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this is how I would do it. Whereas Devil's Rejects is its own film.
Right.
Rodrigo.
Robert
Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, he said a pretty good run.
No, he did Spy Kids and ruined it.
I haven't seen Spy Kids, but it was
We
very
watched Spy
successful,
Kids
wasn't it?
recently for this show, and it's garbage.
Oh, is it really?
I liked it.
Yeah, well, it did really well, didn't it? So it was one of those
That does not make
I
it
think
good.
I really like.
Transformers
No,
did
I know,
really
I
well.
know, but like, I really like Richard Linklater. I think he's a great filmmaker.
He
but
did
actually,
Before Midnight, didn't he?
yeah. But he also did School of Rock, and I think like that is an incredible kids film done by a director who does like Before Sunrise and Boyhood and
What about
Dazed and Confused.
What about people who do the opposite, where they have a really like solid 10-year run of garbage?
Yeah.
Like Uwe
And then
Boll.
one good film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Uwe Boll's never
sorry,
made one good film.
If you say no, Uwe Boll never made one good film,
I mean, I'd say Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie's got like one good film, really.
and then a run of garbage.
I would say I don't know if they're garbage, but Michel Gondry's the only film of his that I love is Eternal Sunshine. I don't think I've been bothered to watch any of the others.
Oh, the most famous example's got to be the Wachowskis, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The first Matrix and everything
Matrix
else they've
and
done
then
is
No,
terrible.
Bound is good. Bound is good.
But everything post-Matrix has been terrible.
Oh yeah,
hasn't
okay, fair play.
it? I do want to see Bound because I've heard it's good.
Yeah, it's cool, definitely.
Think of any other directors where it just goes so
And I think
wildly off.
What's His Face was really good and then went really bad, didn't he? Paul Verhoeven. Personally, I love Showgirls.
Yeah, me too.
But
I
most
love it.
people would agree that Showgirls onwards, his
Yeah.
career's been kind of shit.
Yeah, because he did Starship Troopers before that, which is brilliant, and RoboCop also
Do
brilliant.
love Starship Troopers. I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
I love how that's been a comeback, weirdly enough.
It's all about Showgirls. That's a brilliant
Yeah,
film.
different places.
That's that sex scene in the pool
Yeah.
where she clearly is nowhere near his penis. She's up
looking
here
like a
somewhere.
disembodied dolphin in the last throes of
It's
life.
just bad biology.
I keep
It's like The Room. Have you seen The Room?
Yeah,
where he's like
got
having
belly
sex.
button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with their stomach.
me. Anyway, and then once Halloween's done, we'll be going back to doing normal films until December when it's all Christmas all month.
The human centipede guy, he's also had just a run of shit.
Yeah.
Did he ever have a good one?
Human Centipede does not classify as a good film.
He's got a film, that still hasn't come out. That
Yeah,
he made
I know.
like 10 years ago called The Onania Club.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's about women who
Yeah,
get
well, you
sexual
haven't
pleasure.
seen it. You've seen the
trailer.
trailer.
Yeah.
But nobody has seen the film apart from Tom Six and John Waters.
Yeah. John Waters has seen it.
John Waters has seen it, and he put it as his best film of 2021 or whenever it was that was supposed
Really?
to come out. Yeah.
The one I want to see is
Yeah.
Rodriguez's film that's comes out in what?
2122 or something. Yeah.
I think it's like the late. Yeah, it'll be 2100s, isn't it? It's
The film you'll never see. Do you know about this?
No.
Very quickly then, Robert Rodriguez and John Malkovich teamed up, made a film. I can't remember what the name of the actual film is, but the tagline is "The Film You'll Never See." They've made the film and put the
Is
only
it John Cena the movie?
they've put the only copy of the movie in a time capsule that isn't gonna open until 100 years after they made it.
Right.
Meaning no one alive at the time it was made will get to see it.
well,
Also-
maybe someone in their hundreds might.
Yeah, will we have something that's adaptable to be able to play it 100 years in the think about
Yeah.
100 years tech now.
Imagine they open it, it's just a VHS
What is USB? Why?
I mean, if it's on a film reel, we can still play film reels.
By then, they'll be beaming movies straight into our head. But President Elon will just beam them in.
Oh, I thought you didn't like Batman Forever, but
He'll be half cyborg as well by that point as well, Elon.
that's the plot for Batman Forever.
Yeah, but Batman Forever's garbage.
It's a great film. It's the best Batman.
Right, we're
Oh,
moving
my
on.
God.
George Clooney is the next Batman. Have you not seen this?
Batman and Robin.
After the Flash, after the Flash point.
I've not seen The Flash yet.
Oh, it's terrible. But after credits, Batman is George Clooney again. After he
Right.
comes back from the past, Ben Affleck's Batman is now George Clooney's
Oh wow.
Batman.
Oh, God.
Have the
Does he still
rubber
have the
nipples
bat
come back?
nipples?
Yeah.
Of course he's got bat nips. You only see him as Bruce Wayne. You see him as the car pulls up and goes, Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne. And then Ezra Miller's like, huh? And then it's George Clooney. It's not
Christ.
Ben Affleck.
Anyway, say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
See you next time, guys.